All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Santa Barbara Unified School District's Board of Education for Tuesday, April 22nd, 2014, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Cash.
Please stand. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Buenas noches, good evening. For today's meeting, there's Spanish interpreting available to the public. Si usted desea traducción en español, está disponible. Tenemos los aparatos disponibles aquí por las puertas dobles. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, and we also do have headsets available for the hearing impaired at the side table over here. Dr. Cash, introductions, proclamations, presentations, or recognitions.
Thank you very much, President Parker. We have a couple of recognitions we want to make start our meeting off this evening. I'd like Tom Eck and Juan Carlos Smiley Toral to step up to the podium, please. At lunchtime tomorrow, Santa Barbara High head custodian and track coach Tom Eck will be one of 8 people recognized by the Santa Barbara Police Department with their Good Samaritan Extra Step Award. These awards are presented to citizens who display acts of civic heroism and devotion to their community. Tom will be one of the 8 recipients of the 2014 award, but he is quick to say that there were 2 others who should also be acknowledged. San Marcos High School shot put coach and San Marcos grad, Smiley Terrell, and an unidentified Ventura coach. Last spring, while at a track meet at Santa Barbara City College, Tom instinctively reacted when he noticed a man who got into one of the school's transportation vans and turned on the ignition. Tom physically prevented a felony fugitive from stealing the van and potentially driving through a crowd of student athletes and spectators who were leaving the track meet. Had Tom not reacted by placing the vehicle in park and removing the man through the window, Santa Barbara High female track athletes in the path of the vehicle would have been among those at serious risk. The culprit, who made a very poor choice that day, didn't realize that in addition to Tom, San Marcos High School shot put coach Smiley Terrell took action. Once Tom forcefully ejected the culprit from the van, Smiley and the Ventura coach pinned him down on the ground until the police came. As you can see by the size of those gentlemen, that guy didn't have a chance. These men responded instinctively to protect our students and others from harm's way. And we are immensely proud of the work that they do each and every day with our students. And we know that the well-being of our students is in your good hands. And we'd like to thank you very much. And Mr. Handel has a certificate. Thank you.
Thank you, and I just want to add that we can smile about it and congratulate you now, but I know that in that moment, I'm sure your adrenaline was pumping, and you really made a huge difference for our students. Thank you so much.
So next, I'd like to ask Chucky Roth to come forward and stand at the podium. Is Brian here? Is Chucky here yet? There he is. Come on forward, Chucky. San Marcos High School's Chucky Roth, girls water polo coach, aquatics coach, was recently selected as one of the 2014 Southern Section Winter Coaches of the Year. 7 winter sport coaches from throughout the Southern Section were identified, and Chucky was one of those chosen few. All of the winning coaches will be forwarded to the State Selection Committee for consideration as the State Coach of the Year in their respective sport for 2014. With over 2,000 active members, the California Coaches Association is the largest sports coach organization in the state and in the nation. These winners will be submitted to the state as finalists. We're very proud of Chucky. But here's a little bit more about Chucky Roth. He's coached on the high school, the community college, and the NC2A Division I level. On all levels, he's been noted as a developer of programs and most importantly, a teacher. In 2004, much to my chagrin, because I wanted him at Dos Pueblos, Chucky began coaching at San Marcos High School. In the 17 years of CIF girls water polo competition, Channel League teams have won 12 CIF titles, and another 4 teams have made it to the finals. Coach Roth built his program from the ground up, and for the past 5 years, he's led the Royals to the CIF playoffs. And this past season, for the first time ever, the San Marcos Royals captured the Channel League title, beating former CIF finalist Ventura, along with beating 4-time CIF champion Dos Pueblos, and beating 8-time CIF champion Santa Barbara High School during the Channel League season. During his career, Chucky's teams have amassed a record of 225 wins compared to 143 losses. And that includes a record of 21-8, is that correct, this past year. Chucky is not just a coach, he's a master teacher. And while he has been named CIF Coach of the Year twice, I think he might be most proud of being named the San Marcos High School Teacher of the Year in 2012 and the Santa Barbara County Distinguished Educator of the Year in 2012 as well. Congratulations, Chucky. It's really fantastic having you part of our team. Thank you very much. Well, here's someone that knows Chucky Roth very well. Could Lynn Rodriguez please come forward? Many of us know Lynn is passionate about education, first serving as a board member and then as the board president of the Santa Barbara Public Education Foundation, now the Santa Barbara Education Foundation. She co-chaired the foundation's successful campaigns for the 2008 Measures H and I parcel taxes, and then she co-chaired the successful construction bond campaigns Measures Q and R in 2010. She served on this school board as a member from 2002 to 2006. She's well recognized as a leader in our community, serving on the PTA, the District Special Education Advisory Committee, as well as serving on various community boards. Lynn is described as a consummate professional in her work, and in addition to her family and volunteer commitments, she works as an independent water resources management consultant. Lynn is proud of the fact that she's a graduate of local public schools in UCSB and has made our community a better place for all of her work. And we are indebted to her for her many hours of service. And she's being recognized this evening as she leaves the Santa Barbara Education Foundation as a board member and years of service to the students in our school. And we want to thank you, Lynn. And you're going to get a little flower, too, as well. Thank you very much for what you've done for us.
And Lynn, I just have to pipe up here because beyond the fact that I would not be here on the board if it weren't for you and decisions that you made, I have to just give you so many kudos and thank yous because the students with the parcel tax measures and the bond measures that you've participated in, all the work that you have done on behalf of our students, you just really made a huge difference. And I'm dismayed at you going off the board of the Education Foundation. I hope that you know that we're going to try to keep roping you in. And I know that you care so much about the kids, about all the kids, that I think you'll be awfully tempted. So I want you to know that I'm going to keep you on speed dial. So thank you, Lynn.
I just want to say that I am so happy to be here sitting in the back row and enjoying this meeting, and then I get to go home. Thank you all for all the service that you do, for all of you, to all the staff and to all the parents in the audience. This is really the most amazing community of public education that I can even imagine, and I was so proud to be part of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. A couple of brief announcements. We did complete our LCAP regional meetings, gathered a lot of valuable input. We continue to receive input regarding the first draft of the LCAP. The iPad one-to-one rollout is gone. Mr. Rickman's going to report on it this evening. Beginning tomorrow, the Dos Pueblos Engineering Academy Team 1717 will compete in the first World Championship in St. Louis, and we'll be on pins and needles to see how they perform over the next several days. In the back are flyers for our spring secondary schools theater productions: Oklahoma at La Colina Junior High, Mary Poppins at Dos Pueblos, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying at Santa Barbara High, and Les Miserables at San Marcos High. Boy, that's quite a finale for David Holmes putting on that. Our high school proms start this weekend. San Marcos has a prom on Saturday, then Santa Barbara on May 3rd and Dos Pueblos on May 10th. And the California Science Fair starts on Monday, and we have 20 of our students that are exhibiting at the State Science Fair, which is really incredible for one district to have that many kids. And on this Thursday, our 3 high school drum lines and color guard units will gather at 7 o'clock at Santa Barbara High School for a drumline extravaganza. And if you haven't ever seen one of these events and you have time Thursday evening, I'd highly recommend going. You might consider earplugs, just because it's very loud, but it really is incredible activity. And that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Item C7, this is board comments and correspondence. Board members? Mr. Herron?
I'll just have one correspondence, which I found interesting. Being tobacco-free on our campuses is very special. And I received a notice, and I'd like to publicly thank Mr. Torino, that our district has now been recertified as tobacco-free districts for 2014 to 2017. And I know that all the changes we made were your efforts, Mr. Torino, and I appreciate it.
Okay, we will move on to the announcement of closed session action. We do have 2 items to report out. On item B1, the approval denial of interdistrict transfer appeals for the 14-15 school year, we did have 2 appeals that we looked at. In the case of 2014/15-1, it was moved by Paz and seconded by Idelson to deny the transfer appeal, and that passed unanimously. In case 2014/15-4, it was moved by Idelson and seconded by Limon to deny the transfer appeal, and that also passed unanimously. On item B2, we had a Casey waiver for graduation for students with disabilities under consideration. There was a motion by Herron to approve the Casey waiver for graduation for one particular student. It was seconded by Paz, and that passed unanimously. And that was it for action in our closed session. We now move on to item C9. This is public comments on non-agenda matters within jurisdiction of the Board of Education. Mr. Herron, do we have any?
Mr. Kenneth Locke.
My name is Kenneth Locke. I'm here. I was here probably the past few times, maybe, but I'm working with the idea that with my tennis project, Tennisance, I'm actually going to mention, I'm going to call it the Tennisance method. It's kind of like, and the method, the benefits associated with this, with this method is that it'll integrate people's minds and bodies. It's actually, the method is for learning. So the idea that historically we haven't had a teacher like myself who could teach someone and actually bring them to a point of this mind-body integration and what it means to, let's see, be intelligent, the intelligent version. As I mentioned before, probably you or the city, the idea that right now we live in a time which we don't know what it means to be intelligent and what it means not to be intelligent. And what I'm bringing to the table is the ability to understand what intelligence actually is. And historically, I have to say that tennis hasn't been there yet. And when, like say, the kids enter into a relationship with tennis and apply with this method, they will develop both arms. And it turns out that I have to explain that historically, when a person enters into a relationship with tennis and only applies one arm, well, that's the not intelligent version. So it's kind of like it's a hard pill to swallow, it's going to be, but I'm hopeful that we can actually see through. I'll be working on this through the summer, and I'm hopeful that, I mentioned with the Parks and Rec, to possibly have the ability to teach at the municipal courts, so I'm kind of working on that right now. But I'll keep you up to date. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. Was that it for public comment?
That's it.
All right. We now have the consent agenda. Any items to pull? No? I'm going to go ahead and ask for a motion then, but I'm going to note a couple of things. One, I want to note that on item D1, that Schofield Park is in Santa Barbara. On item D7, we do have an updated form for the Human Resources recommendation that's on the dais that we've had a chance to glance at. And then just on item D5, we probably have our secondary librarians here. Are our librarians in the room?
Yes, they are.
Can you wave at us? There you are. Hello. And I'm just pointing out, I want to say great job. You always do a great job on that. And that as the LCAP moves forward, we'll be looking to see how funding gets tied to your particular library master plan. And I don't know if any other board members want to talk on that particular item. Mr. Herron.
Yes, I went back and read 2009, 2011, 2012, and 2013, and so I looked at them in comparison to 2014. And what I saw was, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, we are doing a much better job. It progresses year after year after year. Your jobs have gotten more complex and more hard. You know, the number of, I had a whole list of, you know, the number of books we're supposed to have per child, the number of hours you operate your libraries, and hopefully in the LCAP we might be able to expand those hours. The number of students per credentialed librarian, 2/3 of the books should be less than 15 years old, and I hope we're abiding by that or trying towards that. And supposed to add one book per student per year, but now we have e-books and we have a whole bunch of other things, and all of the electronics, which in 2009 your technology was not too good. And I get the impression, reading your library reports, that the technology is much better today, which is great. So I just want to thank you. I look at that progression and how well your reports are, and I've commented on this before in the past, but you do a fantastic job and very much appreciated.
All right, with those notes, and can we go ahead and get a motion?
I make the motion to approve the consent agenda with those items that we had some corrections for, noted.
All right.
I'll second it.
Okay, it was Dr. Paz and then seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Okay, we are moving on to the action agenda. Item F1, this is the approval of a facility use agreement between the Santa Barbara Unified School District and the Boys and Girls Club Santa Barbara. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Madam President. We took guidance from the school board, the comments from the last meeting, and have brought back a facilities use agreement. It's very similar to one that we've had with the Goleta Valley Girls Softball Association for, I believe, about 15 years. And we think that this document reflects the comments and the direction the board gave us at the last meeting. Dr. Drotti's here to answer any questions anyone may have.
Well, first I think I'll ask if we have any public comment on this item.
We have three. Rick Tycho, followed by Sheila Price,
Yes. You can go ahead and come up to the
followed by
podium.
Ruben Zandiga. And you have 3 minutes, and I'll give you a sort of a notice, but 30 seconds to go.
There should be several more, because we've returned in several more sheets.
Are there more?
Oh, they're over there. They need to come up here. So if there's any additional public comment, they should come over here to the front. Any additional public comment?
Okay, so this is Mr.
Tico.
Tico, followed by Sheila Price, followed by Ruben Zuniga, if you can be ready to, and how many more are there?
3 more.
3 more? Okay. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, so I'm Rick Tico, born and raised in Santa Barbara. I'd like to thank the board for the time and all the folks in attendance for being here. Santa Barbara High guy, played football quite a while ago, not too long after they put face masks on helmets, so, you know, I know the game. Also played YFL, started in 74, 75, and to me, it's the greatest game ever created by man. So I'm glad to see the school districts enthusiastic about supporting it on some level. However, as a reasonable person, I can't help but ask how it is that Santa Barbara YFL has been repeatedly denied access to the public school fields for the last 3 or 4 years, and yet a proposed new league coming in is granted it. And I haven't read the agreement, so I don't know if it's unlimited access or if there's, you know, some sharing, some way that the 2 leagues could share between YFL and the newly proposed Boys and Girls Club League. But it's a little bit shocking to me, and I would wonder what the rationale there is, because I don't think it's for the best interest of the kids. I find it hard to believe that thumbing your nose at a 40-year-old, 40-plus year stellar member of the community that is well entrenched, that has a tremendous amount of operating experience, and to thumb your nose at that group and provide an operating agreement with a startup league, as a reasonable person, just doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm glad to see the districts involved. That's great. But there should be much more support for YFL, in my opinion. And I think there's a bit of ego involved in this equation. I know through past experience, and Dr. Cash, you might recall we met back in September 2011. The occasion was the rechristening of Valley Stadium at that time to Workington Field, which it currently is. And I made the comment at the time that it was kind of a travesty that YFL would not be allowed to play on that field. And I don't think too many community members knew that, and probably still don't. But they've been precluded from playing on that field in large part. And you had been on the job less than 3 months. And your response to me, you may or may not recall, was
30 seconds.
That YFL is too closely tied to Bishop Diego High School. So I think the collective athletic directors in the public schools may have an agenda here, and you should seriously contemplate that before approving this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sheila Price, followed by Ruben Zuniga, followed by Don Williams.
Hi, I'm Sheila Price, and I've lived here since 1961. As I said 2 weeks ago, my children participated in YFL, my grandchildren participated in YFL. And you're aware of the long history of YFL in the community, and following some disagreements between district personnel and the YFL, in particular over some district personnel's insistence that they have voting rights on the YFL board, which was rejected by the YFL, the district personnel noticeably limited the use by YFL of the public school fields for their games. I believe last year only one field for one Saturday for the season was permitted by each high school. And this is YFL, which has teams from elementary age through junior high. I don't know how many teams, but multiple teams. At the request of some district personnel, a new tackle football program is being organized by the Boys and Girls Club solely for students of the 4 public junior high schools, according to the facility use agreement. Following the ill-drafted partnership agreement, in quotes partnership, but that was sort of what it was like, proposed at the April 8th board meeting, the Boys and Girls Club is now being offered essentially exclusive use of the 7 public junior high and high school fields from the period of August through December of each calendar year for the next 2 years. That's how long the facility use agreement will run. If the board will reflect upon this facility use agreement that is certainly beyond the needs of 4 football teams, because the Boys and Girls Club says they're going to have 1 team for each junior high, the board members may come to realize that your vote to sign the use agreement as drafted would be supporting an unfair policy of certain district personnel who seem to be motivated by spite and have as their agenda a goal of irreparably harming the Santa Barbara YFL and the elementary-aged and junior high-aged kids who wish to play tackle football through the Santa Barbara YFL. This should be about the kids, and it has lost that focus. The YFL, I feel, as a parent
30
that's been
seconds.
involved, that the schools are using the fields as a club. I think the board, as a matter of public record, should express its support of the Santa Barbara YFL and encourage its district personnel to approve use by the YFL of the taxpayer-funded junior high and high school fields during its football season in accordance with board policy and regulations, but administered fairly and impartially. Thank you very much.
Ruben Zuniga, followed by Don Williams, followed by Roy Lopez.
Good evening. I attended a meeting a couple weeks ago and spoke on behalf of the YFL, and I want to make it very clear that in no way am I opposed to what the Boys and Girls Club is doing. As a matter of fact, I think it's excellent. I do think they're a great organization, and they have the means to truly nurture the youth of the community. What I have a very difficult time understanding is how we're standing here with 2 nonprofit organizations, one with a 40-plus year history and one starting a new program, albeit that other organization, the Boys Club, has a very long-standing history in this. I get that. I see blatantly unfair treatment between 2 nonprofit organizations that should have equal access to these fields. So I stand here today not to put down any league. I truly stand here today to make an equal and you know, no pun intended, a level playing field for these kids. I question the motives of the new league, but I do feel that ultimately it will be about the kids. I question whether the private schools would be able to attend the local junior highs and talk up a new league while talking down another league and pitch their their beliefs that way. I don't think that Bishop or Laguna Blanca could attend La Colina Junior High and attempt to create a feeder program. I'm a football coach here, and I truly believe that football just happens to be what we're doing. So the fact that we get the opportunity to touch the community through lessons and through life experience and building values and self-esteem, I think that's what we do. We just happen to wear a whistle and they happen to wear helmets. What I am having a tough time understanding is this truly about the kids? If it was about the kids, I don't believe I'd be standing here today. I don't think all these people would be packed in here today. To me, it sounds like adults having problems with adults, and I don't think there's any room for that in this discussion. Again, I'm looking for fair treatment between given to 2 local nonprofit organizations that have strong roots here. And I truly do think that if it is about the kids, that all this will work out. But most importantly, I have kids that are not going to be allowed to use your fields in July, August, September through November. But come the following summer, when they're going to be a Royal, a Don, or a Charger, those arms all of a sudden say, come on in, play on my fields. So how is that kid valued differently in 8 months? Thank you.
Don Williams, followed by Ray Lopez, followed by Joy Borgeson.
Hello, my name is Dawn Williams, and I am the treasurer of the Santa Barbara Youth Football League. What I do understand is that Dr. Cash and Dr. Drotti come from the Clovis Unified School District. Within that district, they actually do have a feeder league, and they also have nonprofit organizations. But within that district, they have 40,000 kids. They actually have the numbers to pull from. This school district has 15,500. I feel like we are dividing a town in half, and it's not in the best benefit for the kids. What I'm going to talk about as far as the FUA, it states during the season and at all other times is mutually agreed upon through the year by the district and the Boys and Girls Club. Their coaches, spectators will be permitted to use the fields for practices and games free of charge. If our board policy 1330 states the board does not feel that the use of school facility or ground should result in cost to the district, my question is who's going to pay for the district personnel to supervise the Boys and Girls Club when they're having this? Who's going to pay for the janitorial services? I know last year when we were allowed to play at Santa Barbara High School, we played for 8 hours and we paid for 16 hours of janitorial time. So if this is at no cost to the school district, who will pay for the janitorial time to clean up after the Boys and Girls Club gets to use this field for free? I also want to know is why is this new league so focused on our junior highs and only our junior highs? This agreement hasn't even been signed yet. In the last week, the Santa Barbara Boys and Girls Club, along with some of our athletic directors, have been actually at our local junior highs promoting this new league. And what I want to know is if the board policy 1335, did they present the flyers 2 weeks before? Or did they just all decide to go out there and put themselves on the field and get to promote the new league? I would actually like to see those flyers that have been submitted to the school district 2 weeks before you went out and promoted the league. And why are the athletic directors involved in promoting this new league out on the field?
25 seconds.
Also, if you actually want to go to the PVYFC, they actually have on their website that this agreement has already been approved. This agreement has not been approved. So we're putting the cart before the horse. It's almost like this is just, we're putting on a show here. The decisions have already been made.
Thank you.
Without public comment.
Roy Lopez, followed by Joy Borgeson, followed by William Slow. Roy Lopez, Joy Borgeson, William Slow,
Hi, my name is Willie Sloan, and actually, I'm rather for the new league, for the simple fact of, I mean, from the way I've heard this is they keep saying it's a new league. Actually, it's an old league that's really starting up again. I used to play YFL. I played at Santa Barbara High, went to the University of Utah on a scholarship. I still have my picture at Santa Barbara High. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I'm fully into the YFL. I coach there. It's the whole thing is I know of what Joe Salcedo said to us last year, just this last football season, is that the school district wanted to join with YFL, but they didn't want to do it because they said that the school district wanted to pick the coaches. This is what that I heard came out of that man's mouth to me and a lot of other coaches that were there. So it's not like the school district, from what I know, did not try to get with YFL. The Boys and Girls Club took him up on it. Now, I don't know why it's just the junior highs, probably because it's a little bit more controlled or whatever, and you have, instead of so many individual elementary schools, you're starting to have the kids come to a high school, for so many that come to a particular junior high. And then from there, they go to a high school, which each time you keep taking more schools and breaking them down into one. So, as a coach, a parent, who my kid plays, both of my sons have played, I don't see what the problem is with 2 leagues. I do not see what the problem is with 2 leagues. It used to be that way back before you had the Boys and Girls Club, which was just the boys club then, and YFL used to have their own fields. What's wrong with competition? There's multiple basketball leagues, there's multiple soccer leagues. What's wrong with it? Now, we should be sitting here talking about how we can join these 2 leagues together instead of this bickering amongst a bunch of adults.
30 seconds.
Okay? Really, this is what we should be sitting here talking about, how we're about to merge these 2 together and go to PYFL or CYFL, whatever YFL, but let's play some ball. Let's get these kids playing ball, let them get active, and get them out on the field. Thank you.
Thank you. One more time, Roy Lopez, Joy Borgeson.
All right. Board members, questions, comments? I think I should start by framing this conversation with the understanding that what is before us as a board is the facilities use agreement that is between the district and the Boys and Girls Club of Santa Barbara. And I want to be careful that we stay on that topic and not start to veer into judgments about whether or not there should be 2 leagues and things like that. So please just be sure that you stay on the agenda topic as we have this discussion. Ms. Idelson?
I have a question for the district. As far as given this agreement, what would be left for the YFL as far as their use of the fields?
The normal process of people requesting fields is they would go through the same facility request to use. So YFL is welcome to apply for use of facilities. We will go through the same process that we normally have done, and we have not turned down YFL from applying to use the facilities. It's just what we want to do is formalize a facility use agreement and making an arrangement with the Boys and Girls Club because we feel that this is in the best interest of Santa Barbara Unified students. So it's not the same arrangement as an outside agency coming to apply for the use of facilities, and all people are welcome to apply for that. But there will be but we are securing a facility for Boys and Girls Club because they will be taking care of our students.
Right, and will there be less field use available for the YFL given this use?
Yes, the way the process works is we go through a process in which we invite people to come, and we look at the old agreements that people have, like the soccer clubs, and then we basically identify which areas that we can give to people. The first part, the way the priority works is we take care of our needs first. If we have after-school sports programs, that's Santa Barbara Unified, we secure them, and then we look at facility use agreements, and then any other applicants that come after that.
Thank you.
So specifically, I won't know exactly what they would need because they will have to come with a request, and we'll have to look at that in amongst other people that will be requesting the fields.
Mr. Aaron?
Just 2 questions. One, the agreement we had before us 2 weeks ago, when I asked the question about what's the length of time, the answer was pretty emphatic, 1 year. Now, this agreement is giving them a 2-year program. What changed from the 1 year to the 2 year?
This is patterned after, Dr. Drotti wasn't here, after the Goleta Valley Girls Softball Association agreement, which started as a 2-year agreement and subsequently moved to a 5-year agreement.
So that's a change from 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
Yes.
New interpretation? Or new-
Well,
new-
2 weeks ago, there had not been an investigation into that FUA.
Okay. And the other one is the topic of free of charge. What is normally charged for this type of use? What about the expense of cleaning up? and
Dave
gardening?
Young
Dave
will
Young.
answer that question.
I'd have to look at the Board Policy 1330, or excuse me, the Administrative Regulation 1330 has a schedule in there of fees. I believe field use for elementary is somewhere around $12 an hour, and a higher rate for secondary students. And there's also on there a per team per season rate, so they don't have to keep track of all the hours. Typically, when we use the term for free, that means we waive the application and the rental fee. We typically do not waive any fees the school may require for supervision, for custodial, or anybody else. And that's just totally dependent on the school as to what hours they require when they get the copy of the Civic Center permit to review and click off on space available.
So this agreement says free of charge, but you don't really mean that?
Well, what I'm saying is, if the individual school will require people from that school to be paid overtime to supervise an activity when there's no volunteers and somebody has to be there to open a gate, close the gate, or clean something up, that would not be for free. Those people need to be paid out of the general fund, and we'd expect the user to reimburse for those costs. Now, if people clean up after themselves and there's other volunteers to open and close and unlock gates, then there would be no charge.
And the Boys and Girls Club know that there might be a charge?
I can't answer that
Yes, they
question.
do.
Other board
There we go.
members?
So if we go to the athletic field, okay. The second column in the middle is the direct fee rate, and the one column on the right-hand side is the market rate. And so for an elementary age student, a field would rent for $6 an hour, $23 an hour if they're not a nonprofit or an organization formed to provide activities for students. Oops, you went above athletic field, right down just a little bit. There you go. Thank you, Conrad.
How many organizations use our facilities free of charge?
The only people that can, there's only, according to the administrative regulation, the only time somebody can use it, so we back up. Conrad, if we can go back to a previous page in the AR, back a little bit more. Free use per board policy. These highlighted items here, free use and excluding the application fee, but they do have to pay custodial fees, again, even if it's free use. So that currently is the administrative regulation of who gets to use it for free. The next paragraph is the direct cost rate.
Where in that list would the Boys and Girls Club fall?
If we did not have an agreement with them, they would fall under the direct cost use. And then per our administrative regulation, the only person that can waive the fees is Dr. Cash. I don't have the authority to waive the fee for somebody, nor Dr. Drotti, nor Mr. Handel. If he believes it's something out of the ordinary where it'd be an extreme benefit to the school, he does waive the fee. He has done so on occasion, but not on a regular basis.
Mr. Herron, anything further? Okay, other board members? Ms. Simone?
So first I want to actually start off by letting the public know that my husband is associated with one of the Boys and Girls Club, but I have actually double-checked with our legal counsel, and I do not have a conflict of interest, nor a remote conflict of interest on this matter, and so I am legally able to be part of this conversation. I have in front of me the softball agreement, and the softball agreement is actually different. Item number 6 on the softball agreement says that the Goleta Valley, I think it's, what's the G, the Girls Softball Association, shall pay 1/8 of the district's reclaimed water bill for Dos Pueblos High School. And so I'm wondering why this football agreement is free of charge and the softball one actually does have an additional cost associated to it.
Board members, when the agreement started, there was no cost for water, and the reclaimed water provided by the Goleta Water District was very cheap. In fact, it came down the hill from what the golf course didn't use. That's changed over time, and that water rate has increased. Also, there are 4 softball fields at Dos Pueblos High School, more than you would typically find at a secondary site. So Goleta Valley Girls Softball Association is paying for the water for the extra fields that they constructed that would be above standard of what you would find at a high school. So they're not paying for the water for 2 of the softball fields. They're only paying for water for the 2 extra ones. There's a total of 4. Typically you would have 1 or 2 softball fields at a secondary site. So because they constructed these fields on district property years ago, we now have a higher water bill because we have twice the standard number of fields. We don't have twice the number of standard of fields at any other facility that I know of.
So I guess my question is we just, spent some time talking about the drought with City of Santa Barbara, and we understand that fees are going to go up. These are 7 fields, so why is that not on here?
I think if we recognize a need, we're going to evaluate this every year, just as they evaluated after several years that they needed, because the softball program was encroaching on the general fund. We don't want the Boys and Girls Club encroaching on the general fund. Our intent is not to use general fund to fund the program. So if we do recognize that there are some fees associated with the use of the fields in our first year or second year, they're gonna have to pay that difference.
So I guess if we already know that there are fees associated for other FUAs for other teams, why can't we do that analysis up front and do some estimates of, what the fees would be? Because this says free, and I guess that the free part is what's catching me off guard.
We can definitely do that. When we constructed this, after talking with the ADs and facilities, we didn't see the need to do this. But like I say, if we're in operations and we start seeing the bill come in and the general fund has to pay for it, then obviously Boys and Girls Clubs will have to pay the difference.
Right, but I guess since it's a 2-year contract, we would wait for 2 years to go back into a contract as opposed to, so 2 years it would potentially incur on a general fund.
Well, we're not going to know anything until assuming it happens, we won't know anything until it happens. So I think the best estimate is probably after the season's over to make some sort of analysis as to whether there was some impact, in particular in relationship to reclaimed water. And we can certainly add a clause in the agreement that states after the completion of the first season, the parties will meet and confer regarding any additional costs that the district has incurred as a result of the facilities use agreement. And that would be pretty standard legal language to put in there that would ensure that we would have the opportunity to do that.
And I would be in support of that. I think, given that one of our other sports league has some fees associated to it. I think these are 7 fields, so this is a lot. The other question I have is just what's the school district general practice as far as this is not a memorandum of understanding. This isn't a formal partnership. This is just renting out the fields. So what is the school district's practice in terms of passing out flyers and having our staff do recruitment for particular leagues or sports?
Well, that's a Barbara Kiani. Her office handles that.
Her office handles the approving of flyers, and I guess that I want to be clear, the district has made a choice not to go the MOU path, which is a formal partnership. As such, there are benefits that come with that, and one of the benefits is that it's a partnership. There is more involvement, more, from the district, and so this isn't coming to us. It's pretty black and white, straight, facilities use agreement, but then it doesn't have those benefits to it. So I'm wondering what the practice is. Do we, for example, for the softball field, pass out flyers to our schools, for the soccer, for everybody else?
I don't know the answer to that question.
We can, I know that the facility use agreements, it spans beyond just athletics. If you go look at ICANN, if you go look at CalSOAP, we have so many different programs we have facility use agreements with that we give flyers to promote the programs because we are in line with what they're trying to do.
Well, and I thought ICANN and CalSOAP were MOUs, not facilities.
Facility use agreements.
So, and that's what I'm
But,
saying,
yeah.
there's benefits that come to the MOU.
Yes.
And so I just want to be sure that that a facilities use agreement in no way, shape, or form has additional benefits that wouldn't be allowed to other
Yes.
folks in the facilities use agreement, around recruiting, around advertising for that particular sport.
I want to be really clear very clear, that we have the authority to make decisions on, outside of any official relationship, on who presents materials to our students.
Right.
And it's
And
not
that's in our
just
board policy.
everybody gets to do it because they all claim to serve youth.
Right, and because of that, I also want to make sure, though, that if other sports are going to come, maybe not football, maybe, Goleta Valley's girls softball team wants to do the same, that they're going to have that same right to come and advertise and, flyers.
A perfect example right here is we have lacrosse, very interested in promoting lacrosse in a school district. We want lacrosse. We are aligned with their vision. We think it's going to be good for our students. So we welcome them on our sites to talk to students, and they have done that. It's the same situation here. We're aligned philosophically with what Boys and Girls Club is about. We trust what they're about, most importantly, because we trust what they're going to give our students is going to be something that we will promote. And then, so there are opportunities, right? There are agencies that come to us that we promote, and lacrosse is probably the most recent group that we know has been on our sites promoting the program.
Got it. And so, and I follow that, and I understand we do have a policy for it. I guess that I, as a board member, also just feel uncomfortable not having a clear policy that treats everyone in the same way. I think that judgment has to be made by the school district, and I respect and understand that. But I think in a situation like this, I personally feel uncomfortable knowing that that a facilities use agreement could potentially also mean some greater benefit besides above and beyond what the facility use agreement says.
And I think we're not shying away from the Boys and Girls Club. We want them serving our students because they're serving a need that we are unable to serve. And so I don't want anybody to think that we're trying to skirt around something. We want them in our schools. We want them facilitating the football program that they want to facilitate because we think that's benefiting Santa Barbara Unified School District students.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Paz.
No, yeah, I share some of the same concerns that Monique does, only on the clarities issue, because I think when we look back at our last board meeting, I think part of the issue and discussion we had was related to clarity pieces. So I would hope that as we move forward in this process, that we take the time to look at that as a process, and I defer to staff's judgment in terms of looking at, you all are working with our students every day. We are not, as board members. So I think that the judgment is on your shoulders, but at the same time, when we have these type of items come up to the school board, it's really challenging for
Yes.
us as school board members, even you as staff, to kind of be able to explain it to the public and have the public understand sort of what our processes are, so that we are as transparent as we possibly can. People have a fair understanding of what to expect and what not to expect. So I would ask for that. I do, echo my fellow board members' request to really look at what possible impacts we may have on our general fund, and whether we should be paying for some of those costs as we move forward. I think it would be good at the one-year mark to kind of look at it and just assess. Did we not have any costs? I don't know, and I think it's hard to make that judgment call at this point in time because we don't know all the facts. And when you look at San Marcos, there's not an irrigation cost; it's a artificial field.
Yes.
But when you look at some of the other ones, there will be, and some of our sites are better repair, and some are worse off, and some could fall inside of a bad repair for overuse. So I understand that, but I do echo some of the same concerns.
Okay, I just want to be careful as we're talking about, I appreciate, Dr. Paz, you bringing up the idea of field use and possible damage because it's, of fields that might need funding associated with field repair. Because I want to be careful with the irrigation piece, because what Mr. Hetyank was saying was that at Dos Pueblos, that the Goleta girls softball, is it the Girls Softball Club?
Association.
Girls Softball Association, they actually have developed 2 extra fields. And so it's not as if we could ever go to the Boys and Girls Club and say, start charging for irrigation, because those are our fields, and we're going to be watering them. They're not above and beyond anything. But I do appreciate the piece about field use. And I guess I'm wondering, both with the board and with Dr. Cash, I mean, it sounds like what we want is a line attached to page 1 of the agreement, number 1, where it says the term of this agreement shall be for a period of 2 years, commencing on May 14, 2014, and terminating on May 13, 2016, unless sooner terminated as herein provided. It sounds like what we want is a sentence added there that says, along the lines of, after 1 year, 1 year into the agreement, any costs associated with the Boys and Girls Club Santa Barbara use of the field will be reviewed, and charges may be adjusted. But I don't know if you want that to be inserted and then come back on a consent agenda next time, or if that's something that we should even try handling here.
Well, I would hope that you'd handle it here. I can certainly add the language that would reflect what I stated. Which would bring it back to you at the end of the first season.
Okay, Mr. Herron.
I would suggest we just make it a one-year agreement and have it come back in a year, and the discussion then would be whether there's any cost involved. And wouldn't need to add anything.
Just change the date.
Just change the date. That seems pretty reasonable. All right, so if everybody is all right with changing the date from May 14, 2014, terminating on May 13, 2016 to May 13, 2015, can I have a motion?
Well, on that particular item or the whole thing?
On the whole thing.
Oh, I have one other thing.
Yes, Mr. Herron. And Dr. Paz after.
I would like, not necessarily at this moment, but some type of understanding with the Boys and Girls Club that they understand what free of charge means. So whether that's done separately is fine with me, but just that we don't come back a year from now and they say, well, you said we'd have it free of charge. What are all these new charges? So I'd like to see some type of understanding with staff and boys and girls that free of charge means what Mr. Hetyak was saying. There's other charges that aren't free.
Got it.
And Dr. Paz.
So go ahead.
Sorry.
It's kind of in the same vein almost. So when I look at number 2, and then you read on to that one sentence says it's free of charge, but you really need to take this into consideration with our board regulations to understand that it falls within that first category. I almost feel like we need to even say that within this contract so that people are clear that it's not it falls into a certain category. If you could add that to the last part of that sentence or something, that might, and I'll leave it up to you all to come up with the wording, but that would be really helpful. So, and if anyone picks this contract up in the future, as someone has presented a softball contract, they'll understand that it falls into this category, and it's not a conflicting policy that we're trying to, or a conflicting field use agreement with our policy.
So we would add,
Could we just do like a reference to the actual?
Yeah, something along
right,
those lines.
so
Yeah,
in that,
either policy.
Mr. Het-Jan, what was
It
that?
was an AR.
AR.
1330 or 1335? 1330. All right, so we'll just include a reference to AR 1330.
It'd be the free use category of AR 1330.
Great.
Will do.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Limon?
Well, and I think finally want to reiterate that what's in front of us has nothing to do with approving or partnering to create a league, and it's just the facilities use. I want that to be very clear, that that's what's in front of us.
All right, and with that,
I'll so move.
is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. It was moved by Mr. Herron and seconded by Ms. Idelson to accept this, to approve this facilities use agreement with minor revisions as noted. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. Thank you. It is now 7:33, and we know that some of you may need to leave at this point. So if you do need to leave, please do go ahead. We also have item G1 coming up not soon enough, and that is the presentation to the Board of Education on fighting back with Ms. Rockwell. Does your student have time to present on this? With the board's agreement, we do have a student that would like to go ahead and give comment on G1 now because he has to leave the meeting, if that's all right with the board? All right, and so with that, we're going to go ahead and call Mr. Esteban Mendez.
Yeah, like she said, my name is Esteban Mendez. I'm a sophomore at Santa Barbara High School, and I'm on the topic of fighting back. As a freshman, I wasn't really doing well with my grades. I was on my temper. I was acting up. I was all around bad kid. And the fall of this year, my sophomore year, I was introduced to Reconnecting Youth, which is associated with YSS. And with that, I knew one of the teachers already, Miss Myers, we call her Rose, and she invited me. She, do you want to join this class? I was like, yeah, please. And then she's like, I'm like, oh, I have football, can I still do it? She's like, yes, this is not elective, you can do it as another elective. I'm like, all right. So what that helped me was, it gave me a place to go to be safe and to help me with like what I'm doing wrong. Like I have friends in that class too, and then Gabby helped me and everything. So after I ended with Reconnecting Youth, I was invited to Friday Night Live with the club we have at school. And then with that, Gabby, who was our Y teacher, was head of that too, with Selena. And then I was that environment of being safe and having a good place to go talk to was still there for me, which I really liked. And then when I was asked to speak at board meeting last month, I was like, yeah, of course, I'm happy to do it. So I was really excited about talking about RY and the amazing thing it done for me. Because as of right now, I'm eligible to play football again as varsity next year with straight B's, and then I'm doing good with like with my temper. I'm doing good. I'm good with my mom. Have not even, because I usually like have temper with my mom, and then so yeah, it really helped me with everything I've been going through. So I credit everything I've been going through right now to Reconnecting Youth with helping me with football and everything. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Mendez, for waiting and for being flexible enough to go out of order. And we'll be hearing more about Reconnecting Youth and fighting back in a little while. And next up is item F2. We're going to go back to item F2. This is the approval of the petition for renewal of Adelante Charter School. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Madam President. There was only one item that Adelante Charter needed to touch up, which they did, with their plan to achieve ethnic and racial balance in line with the Santa Barbara Unified School District. I don't have anything to add to my staff report. That was before the board as a conference item. It's my recommendation, heartfelt recommendation, along with all members of senior staff, to recommend to the board approval of the Adelante Charter Schools renewal petition.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment on this?
We have one. Carmen Magallanes.
Carmen may have
Okay.
been worn out waiting after our last agenda item. All right.
No.
Board members, comments and questions? Mr. Herron.
Could I make the motion to approve the petition for renewal of Adelante Charter School?
You've been wanting to do that, Mr. Herron.
Yes, I have. 5 years, yeah.
All right, we will go ahead and get that on the floor. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll make the second, happily.
All right, seconded by Dr. Paz. Further discussion, board members? Oh, all right, we can go ahead. Come on up.
Be careful what you say.
Estimados miembros de la mesa directiva de educación y administradores del distrito escolar. Mi nombre es Carmen Magallanes Castillo y soy miembro de la mesa directiva de Padres Unidos. Nos gustaría expresar nuestro fuerte apoyo para renovar la cédula de Adelante Charter School. Hemos estado colaborando con la escuela por varios años con varias iniciativas en el involucramiento de los padres. El éxito académico de la escuela durante estos 4 años pasados es fabuloso. Dicha escuela ha logrado cumplir con todas sus metas, no solo como escuela entera, sino también con los grupos estudiantiles. La visión y el compromiso para la excelencia ha sido inculcado por toda la escuela. La comunidad apoya la escuela y esto ha proveído grandes oportunidades a los alumnos y a los padres. La realidad es que hay mucho involucramiento de los padres y participación comunitaria en la escuela, y esto es un indicador de que esta escuela es exitosa. Padres Unidos tiene planes de una vez más colaborar con la escuela en el año próximo para ofrecer entrenamientos de padres y apoyo. Nos llama la atención el liderazgo visionario de la directora Juanita Hernández, su entusiasmo y excelentes planes para la escuela. El programa de instrucción es de alta calidad y es una comunidad escolar donde el lenguaje y la cultura de las familias son valoradas. Urgimos a que el distrito escolar renueve la célula de Adelante Charter School. Gracias por su tiempo. Carmen Magallanes, de parte de Padres Unidos. Gracias.
Thank you. We actually do need to get that in English as well, and so I don't know if our translator can come forward for that and maybe take your remarks in Spanish, because members of the public need to be able to hear that on television. So we'll give him a moment to come forward. And if you can. See, you get to come back to the podium too.
My name is Carmen Magallanes. I am a member of the board of Padres Unidos. We would like to express our support of the renewal for the Adelante Charter petition. We have been collaborating with the school for a few years with a few initiatives for participation of parents. The academic achievement of our schools during these 4 years has been fabulous. This school has achieved all of its goals, not only for the school, but also for the student groups. The vision and the commitment for excellence has been a part of the whole school. The community supports the school. And this has provided a lot of opportunities for our students and for parents. The reality is that there's a lot of parent participation and a lot of community participation in our school. And this is an indication of a successful school. Padres Unidos has plans to once again collaborate with the school this next coming year in order to offer trainings for parents and support for parents. We would like to draw attention to our leadership under the direction of Juanita Hernandez and her enthusiasm and her excellent plans for the school. The instructional program at our school is very high quality. And this is a school community where language and culture of the families are very valued. We would like to urge the district and the school board to renew the Adelante Charter School petition. Thank you for your time. Carmen Magallanes, on behalf of Padres Unidos.
Thank you. All right, we do have a motion. Mr. Herron?
Under discussion, I'd like to just have Juanita, the principal, and Mr. Lang, the president of the board, and the rest of the staff stand up. That's staff and board members.
Other board members?
Let's do this.
Okay. Well, I'll just say that I completely agree with everything that Ms. Magallanes had to say, and it's a pleasure to be here under such positive circumstances, so thank you all. And all those in favor? Aye. Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, and good night, and another 5 years. All right, we'll take a moment, and while you may need to exit, we will be talking about trans on item F3. This is the approval of resolution number 2013/14-47, authorizing and approving the borrowing of funds for fiscal year 14-15, the issuance and sale of a 14-15 tax and revenue anticipation note, therefore, and participation in the California Education Notes Program. I feel like I've said it all there, Mr. Tay.
Yep, I can sit down now.
Okay.
And this isn't quite as exciting as approving Adelante's charter, but... So each year, the district needs to temporarily borrow cash to ensure it meets its obligations. Since the district's 93% of its total unrestricted revenue is property taxes, it's only is only received twice a year. You can see the need that we have for borrowing cash. We are one of 5 of districts in the California Education Note Program, Hope being one of them, and also San Mateo, Woodside, and Saratoga. This year, we're expected to not to exceed 12 million, and which is, we've come down quite a bit. At one point, we had $22 million that we would borrow again. So now we're down to 12 million, and we're excited about that. That we will not exceed 12 million. So we may even end up borrowing less once we get closer to the end of the year. We get our cash flows in, and so we can make a better projection of what we'll need. So I'm here to ask you to approve the 2014-15 TRAN, Tax Revenue Anticipation Note.
We can hear that members of the public are very excited about this, too.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Wonderful presentation, Mr. Tay. Mr. Herron.
I'll move approval of resolution number 2013/14-47.
I'll second it.
All right, moved by Mr. Herron and seconded by Ms. Idelson. We'll note that there was a typo that has been corrected. Has the correction been posted on the web at this point?
Not yet, but it will be first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, great. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. That passes unanimously. Moving on to F4, this is the approval of Resolution 2013/14-42 regarding the reduction or discontinuance of classified services.
Would ask Mr. Tangway to come forward. He's going to present this item.
Thank you, Dr. Cash, members of the board. So first thing I want to say is we never bring a resolution for layoff to the board lightly. We understand that this process is disconcerting for employees and that it creates a very emotionally charged atmosphere. So we're very aware of that. However, this year we have the LCFF and we have the LCAP, and we are proceeding very cautiously. So we are doing what we used to do with certificated on March 15th. In essence, I think we may be over-noticing, but that's a safe course to take. So, with the exception of the 2 positions being eliminated due to the implementation of the Munis financial system, this is all about funding. This is not about a judgment of the value of the work or any of the employees who perform that work, and that often gets confused in this discussion. This is strictly about funding. It's not about people. Now, one reason there's so many positions on the list this year is that this time around, this list includes all of our recently hired curriculum specialists. Those positions are typically funded by donations, Title I, what used to be called EIA-LEP, and so on. They're all categorical, so they're all being noticed. Our hope is that once the district adopts its budget and the sites have developed their budgets, that we will be able to rescind these notices and the employees will report back to work as usual. That's our hope. But in case that does not happen, we will go through the process as we always do with CSEA. We'll negotiate the effects and we will protect the rights of those employees who are affected. We'll make sure that their seniority rights, their entitlement rights to other positions are adhered to. Any questions?
I think I will ask board members first if there's public comment on this. Let's do public comment, and then if we have questions, we'll come back to you, Mr. Tanguay.
Ruben Orozco, followed by Vivian Rangel, followed by Paul Rooney.
Hello, my name is Ruben Orozco. I work at San Marcos High School as a computer technician, and pretty much all these positions that I've seen, the ones at San Marcos I'm very familiar with. These positions, these persons, they work daily with students. Hopefully, the budget gets fixed the right way, so then we can bring back not just the people at San Marcos, but everybody at the district. With the big push in technology, I see a lot of computer positions. Hopefully we can bring those back as well. Since the push is with technology, I just don't see, not bringing back all those technology positions. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Vivian Rangel, followed by Paul Rooney.
Good evening, thank you. My name is Vivian Rangel, and I work at San Marcos High School. I'm in my 11th year there, and I'm one of the positions, I hold one of the positions that's due to be cut. I'm an office assistant bilingual, and I wear a few different hats. I work for special education, where I work with our dozen or so special education teachers, maintaining the IEP calendar, communicating with the parents, English and Spanish, to come up with a date. I issue the notice of meetings for various teachers and make sure that those get sent out in a timely manner. I also maintain the interpreter calendar. I have a list of possible interpreters at the school, that when we have an overflow of meetings that our current main IEP interpreter can't make, then I insert somebody on a rotating scale. One of the other things I do is I work for English Language Development Program, which I have done in all the 11 years that I've been there, as well as a special education. I I'm the assistant to Roxana Stern, who is in charge of all the annual and initial SALT testing for the 400-plus San Marcos High School students. I've been working on this once again all the years that I have been at San Marcos. When we get new students who are identified that need an initial SALT test, I'm the one that does it. I'm the one that gets it done and finds out their scores, reports it to Roxana and to the counselor, and the counselor uses those scores to assign the specific classes based on the scores for that student. Another thing that I do is work at the front desk. Now this is my second year that I've been there. The reason I'm there is that San Marcos doesn't have funding for a receptionist. So they took me out of my little office and put me up at the front desk where I hire student assistants. I interview them and I train them on proper phone deportment and how to greet visitors and how to navigate all the information that they need to get a phone call where it needs to go. And those are the 3 different hats that I wear, plus interpret whenever somebody pulls me aside, I need help here, then that's what I do. And the 1,000 or so visitors that come every month that sign in just that front door, they're going to sorely miss me if I'm not there. It'll just be the kids taking those calls at lockdown from the sheriff.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
vivid description. Mr. Paul Rooney?
Thank you, Vivian and Ruben. I have a few people here. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm not here to cause any irritation or pick a fight with anybody. I too support the district. I know that they have a budget to abide by, and that this is a normal procedure of noticing people that in order to cover the budget. But I just want to read what I have here. In the past 5 or 6 years, our district employees have been shaken with layoffs, and in my opinion, it was due to the previous state leadership that did not have our best interest in mind. So every year, due to a very lean state budget, you have had to keep look at keeping the district afloat without harming the children. Teachers and classifieds were the first to be affected. As I am confident, as confident as I am, that the state budget will relieve the need for layoffs, the fact is that each of my fellow employees on the list is going to be affected in some way, possibly disrupting their personal life. Let's look at a few jobs affected and the support provided for the children. Instructional assistants, there are 33 positions being laid off. They assisted certificated teachers in reinforcing instruction to individual or small groups of students. They provide tutoring to individual students or small groups of students, monitor and oversee instructional drills, exercises, practices, and assignments. They assure the well-being of the students, direct group activities, perform routine clerical duties, operate a variety of contemporary office equipment, and perform related duties as assigned. The curriculum specialists there's 29 positions. They provide specific support services to students individually or in small groups in reading, math, and other core content area. They also assist certificated teachers in improving literacy standards through the use of a variety of instructional strategies. They provide and implement problem-solving strategies, comprehensive activities, and active learning experiences. They also collaborate in the preparation of instructional materials and activities, and they also perform related duties as assigned. Computer support. There are 10 positions that are being noticed. They provide skilled technical support and troubleshooting in the day-to-day operation of standalone or local area network microcomputers, terminals, workstations,
20 seconds.
iOS devices, and related hardware. The clerical positions will lose 17 positions. Altogether, the children will lose just over 70 positions that are classified, and that is not including the individual relationships these students have with their support staff. Please give this serious consideration when making a decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, board members. Ms. Timon?
So I will need to recuse myself from this vote as I have a conflict of interest because I'm related to somebody on the list.
All right, other board members. Dr. Paz?
I just want to say that I personally know all the good work that our classified employees do, as I was one of you at one point in time. And having worked at a school, I always turn to a lot of the classified employees to do my work. So I want to put on record that your work is not unnoticed by me, for sure. And so I know schools would not function without your being there, your ability to do the work, and your passion for doing the right thing. I know that this is just a process that we go through, and hopefully at the end of the day, as Mr. Tangway has mentioned to us, we will be coming back and resending all of them, if with the exception of the two that were noted. So just want to say that. Thank you.
Mr. Herron?
Yeah, I'd just like to comment that, it's no longer business as usual. We can look at the past, and when I first joined the board, there were buckets of money around, and we had to spend it. This is how you spend this. This is how you spend that. The good news is, with the change in the situation, we now have to make the decision how to spend that money. And so it's not business as usual. There may be things we don't want to do anymore. I mean, the definition of insanity is keep doing things over and over again and getting the same result. So there may be changes, but that's what the LCAP program is all about. A lot of these positions, if I understand it correctly, are funded by donations. The foundations, different entities within each individual school provides funds for some of these programs. We don't know that money's coming. I mean, that's a decision by a local, one of the local schools. So we have to take protective steps to, number one, make sure we have the funds to pay these people, and number two, to make sure they're still a priority. They might all be. I mean, I'm not saying they're not, but we now have that job, whether we like it or not. We have to make those decisions. And so it's not business as usual. We're going to look at every single line item and make sure we as a board and as a district and as principals and administrators and classified people understand that they still are a priority. Because that's our job now, is to make sure we spend every dollar correctly for the benefit of our students. So I hope we can retain every one of the classified people. But through the process that Dr. Cash is going through right now, he hasn't come up with a final LCAP plan. So we can't fund those positions. We have no money to fund those positions. And we may find that we don't want to fund them. So I hope we do, but I hope that... I heard a talk by Malcolm Gladwell. David and Goliath, he spoke just recently, and he talked about the need for respect, fairness, and trust. And I hope over the last 5 years, well, I've been on the board anyway, and longer for Ms. Parker, that we're gaining that respect, fairness, and trust, and I hope we have the understanding of our staff that we're going to do what's best for them, but also what's best for our students. And so I just ask that you go through this process with us and hope that it works out to the best of everybody. But unfortunately, sometimes it may not.
Other board members? I just want to say actually thank you to the speakers, because it does, it's helpful for me to see the face of the people that are affected, and I think it helps the community in general for you to get up and sort of explain your roles and personalize it and make sure people understand that it's not just decimal points, and it's not just job titles. So thank you for coming and speaking in front of us. I know that that can be hard sometimes. And I also want to say that I hate this. I hate it for when we're doing this with teachers. I hate it when we're doing it for classified. And I appreciate what Mr. Herron has said. Obviously, there are dramatic changes with the LCAP, and we're not sure yet how the money's going to fall out. But I also very much hope that these positions all end up being what's best for students, and that they're ones that we can fund, and that the ones that are funded by sites, that those schools decide that that's what they want to do in the future. And Mr. Tangway, I don't know if you had something you wanted to add.
I just wanted to make a clarification. My dear colleague, Mr. Rooney, I think he overstated the numbers we're talking about by an order of magnitude. 11.4 curriculum specialist positions, and roughly 11 instructional assistant positions, not 20-some, not 70 layoffs total. Just want to make that clear.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tangway. All right, with that, and Ms. Limon explaining that she needs to recuse herself, we do need to make a motion on this.
I make the motion.
So Dr. Paz has moved that we approve the resolution 2013/2014-42.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ms. Idelson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstaining?
Abstain.
So that passes 4-0 with one abstention. Thank you. And with that, we're going to move on to the conference agenda. The first up is the presentation to the Board of Education on Fighting Back, and that's Ms. Selena Rockwell. And Dr. Cash, I don't know if you want to introduce.
No, well, yes, I want to first publicly acknowledge the great partnership that we've had for years with the Council of Alcohol and Drug Abuse, CADA, in particular, the Youth Service Specialist program on our secondary schools, and want to acknowledge the great work that they do each and every day. The public comment from the student at Santa Barbara High School would be a drop in the ocean, I would say, conservatively, in the number of students' lives that the YSSs have saved in our school district over the years they've worked with us. So it's a partnership I'm very proud of to be part of, and always look forward to hearing their annual report. So with that, Ms. Rockwell, you're up.
Thank you very much, members of the board and Dr. Cash. So we have been in the schools for more than 20 years, and it is that partnership that really provides those support for students like Esteban, who came and spoke earlier. So thank you for giving him that time. He was really excited. And he is definitely an example of our students where they come in an intervention place, and then they come out as leaders. So thank you. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Selena Rockwell, and I'm the coordinator for the Youth Service Specialist program. So through the Council on Alcoholism, Drug Abuse, and Fighting Back. And we're here tonight to give you a brief overview of all the many services we provide in the schools.
We're going to go ahead and tag team this presentation. My name is Melissa Wilkins. I'm the prevention coordinator, and I oversee the prevention components of our YSS program, including our universal prevention as well as our parent and community outreach.
So the heart of our program is really our YSS team, and we have full-time YSS who work in each of the Santa Barbara secondary schools. So Santa Barbara High School and San Marcos High School, we have two that work at each of those school sites, and then one at the other school sites. And one thing we are so proud of is, we're proud of our staff. They're amazing. You see that they're highly skilled, they're compassionate, and they connect really, really well with the students. And you can also see the diversity of our staff. Our staff are reflective, the cultural diversity, I would say, of the students that we serve. So we're going to go ahead and go into that. This next slide shows our main program components of what our YSS are doing at the school sites. And then it also breaks it down by the demographic breakdown. So first off, you see over to the right, we have our daily Reconnecting Youth class. And we're going to go into details later on in this presentation. And then individual counseling services that we provide, Friday Night Live leadership, and universal prevention. So what you see on the top of the pyramid is our intervention services, and then going down to prevention. And what you, so first off, with Reconnecting Youth, you see that so far this year, we have 278 students who have taken Reconnecting Youth. So just like Esteban, who said, this is a class I was invited into, he's one of those examples. We see that 80% of those students are Latino, 56% are female. And then going into individual counseling, this data is actually from through the end of March, so this isn't full for the full school year, obviously. And we see that 73% of our students served are Latino, and we have actually have one mistake that's in this slide. The female, that should say 61% female. I apologize for that mistake. I caught that earlier today, and I'm sorry about that. So we serve through individual counseling 61% females, and we estimate that through our intervention services, by the end of this school year, that we'll be helping 1,000 students through individual counseling and Reconnecting Youth.
So in addition to the intervention programs that our YSS provide, they also provide a whole variety of prevention programs. So our more in-depth prevention programs are through our Friday Night Live and Club Live leadership. You can see that year to date we've served over 340 students through regular club meetings and activities. In addition to that, we have a variety of strategies for universal prevention. And this is really intended to reach the entire school campus with messaging and pro-social activities, classroom presentations, and campaigns to really promote social health and wellness. It does this by promoting positive decision-making and really encouraging students to choose to be drug and alcohol free.
So Reconnecting Youth is one of our more targeted intervention programs. It's a daily intervention program. And this program, it's an evidence-based program, and it was designed to catch students who are at risk of dropping out of school or at risk of suicide. So it really uses strategies to work with those risk factors. And how RY works, much like Esteban shared, is that we get referrals from teachers, from counselors, from admin, who are students that you think need some extra support, that are starting to go down on a downward slope. And with those referrals, the YSS actually meets with the students, tells them about the class, lets them know that this is a structured class. It's different than most classes because it's small. There's only about 10 students per class. That creates a kind of a safe, confidential, trusting space for students. And in that class, it's a peer-based approach, so students learn from their peers. So that's where students really get empowered, because the students in the class say, hey, I've been through hard times and this is what I've learned. This is how I got through it, and they help each other. And when I say it's structured, it's also skill-based. So skill-based in that students learn new skills and then they get to practice them in class. So they do role model, role play, and then get out there in the real world and use those skills. Actually, go ahead. And what we know is Reconnecting Youth works. It helps with mood management, drug use control, and improving school academic achievement. Actually from Santa Barbara High School, just learned from the Rising Dawns program, for example, last semester alone, 22% of the students that were in RY were Rising Dawns. That means their GPA improved more than one grade point. So it's huge. So what you can see is that RY, what it does is it reconnects students to school, and it reconnects students to, I'd say, themselves. So they learn ways to better cope, anger management, depression, how do I deal with this that's going on for me, and so that I can have success in my life, personally and in school. And in addition, of course, because we're counseling alcohol and drug abuse, it reduces, or many of our students share, that they completely stop, they're clean and sober after taking RY. So next, our individual counseling services. Our YSS provide a safe, confidential space for students to come and talk about whatever they've got going on. And what you can see from here is that students self-refer 33% of the time to the YSS. That's huge. What that says is students say, I trust you. this is a place I can go and talk about what's really going on, and that's really what students share. We have a variety of services. We do whether it's crisis intervention, we do mediations, restorative mediation, so when they're in conflict with other students. We also help them offer support when they're in conflict with teachers, so part of the restorative approach process. And then we also do parent conferencing. And we are on track to provide more than 4,000 services this year. We estimate, reaching 1,000 students through these services. And you can see down here, there's many, many different reasons for why we see students. Because, as I mentioned before, even though we're from CADA, Council on Alcohol and Drug Abuse, there's underlying issues. Students are having problems at home, they're having problems in school, and they can't focus. So they come to that YSS for that support.
And I've had the opportunity to talk to you about our Friday Night Live, Club Live programs, but what I want to share with you this evening is that we've added 4 new school-based chapters this year at each of our local high schools, including La Cuesta. And what we've seen as a result of that is that our YSS have really integrated FNL into the continuum of care that they're providing to their students. And Esteban was a perfect example of that this evening, where our YSS are engaging their former Reconnecting Youth students in Friday Night Live as a way of continuing to provide safe and healthy opportunities for those students. It's relapse prevention, and it's also skill building opportunities for them to continue to connect with our youth service specialists. So that's been really great for us to get to see. Our Friday Night Live and Club Live programs are based on standards of practice that ensure that our students are receiving safe, healthy, supportive opportunities, that they have those skill building activities, that they have positive peer and adult role models, and that they're really being engaged in that school culture. There you go. And as a result of that, we have great outcomes for Friday Night Live, Club Live. We have our students, because of their engagement and connectedness, not just with their YSS and their peers, but in the school community, they're reporting that they are more excited about and committed to being in school. They're reporting that they have strong opportunities for community involvement and for deciding to do things other than alcohol or drugs. And a lot of our students, that's huge for them. And so that is one of our huge successes with our Friday Night Live program. As they're moving into high school, these skill building opportunities are really focused as well on getting them career and college ready. And so you had the opportunity to hear from a couple of our students at your last school board meeting, and they were practicing their public speaking skills. These are students who 3-4 years ago, when they first started in our programs, would not have said a word. So it's really incredible to see them open up as a result of being involved and continuing to keep that relationship with their youth service specialists. And what our students shared about last time they were here is our campus-wide universal prevention campaigns. They were sharing with you about our Committed campaign. So these, I really want to emphasize, are campaigns that our YSS put together in partnership with our student leaders. The messaging is targeted, and it's geared towards the specific school that our students are at. So this year we had students who really focused on marijuana, and you can see in that picture. They ran campaigns just around the risks and harms associated with marijuana use because they felt that marijuana was a huge issue at their school site. We had other students who really focused on alcohol because of binge drinking. We had one school who focused and did an anti-bullying campaign because they wanted to really improve their school climate as a whole. So each of these campus-wide messaging, they're unique, and yet they reach the entire student population through bulletin announcements and classroom presentations. So the numbers you saw earlier, they were actually only through the end of March. We've done an additional 40 classroom presentations just during the month of April, in honor of April being Alcohol Awareness Month. Sorry, if you want to go back for 1 second. No worries. So along with all of our student outreach, our YSS also have done a significant amount of parent education and staff development this year. So they've put together presentations, workshops, and been out at PTSA meetings providing trainings and support to your faculty and staff as well as the parents. And all of these are services that our YSS are really providing to provide that additional support to our students.
And lastly, I'm just going to talk a little bit about this, our drug and alcohol infraction protocol, which is part of the school discipline policy. And these are not happening on the school campus, but our YSS facilitate the SUPER group. You're probably very aware of SUPER. So when students have a drug or alcohol infraction on campus, they're referred to SUPER. It's a parent and teen program. It builds up communication, builds up their relationship, and teaches about risks and harms and consequences related to drugs and alcohol. And in response to last year, when I came and presented about, when I talked about SUPER, you all asked me at this presentation, what about students who need more than SUPER? Because you saw students that were continuing to have problems. And we knew that that was an issue. And we knew that some of our students need treatment. Is really what they need. They need more than those four sessions. And because of that, we've added for second offense or when students have higher drug and alcohol issue needs, they're referred to the restorative peer review process. That's part of teen court. And what happens with that is that students get an assessment and they're assessed, related to how much they're using. And so from that, they may end up going to treatment in addition to many other, you can see community service, many other options that are part of our teen court process. So that's something new that we added this year as an update. And those are our drug and alcohol infraction, what we do for that. And so just to wrap this up, we just really want to appreciate you for our partnership that we have with you because we're able to provide these many services in the schools. And really welcome your questions, feedback, guidance, whatever you have for us, because that's what helps us continue to do the great work that we do. So,
thank you. Board members? Dr. Paz?
Just wondering, when you look at your numbers, I'm curious, your demographics reflect more females than males. And what has your experience been for that particular thing? And then the second question is, when you look at your numbers across all of our schools, it's not reflected in that particular chart right there, or the first one you presented was sort of the distribution across our schools, and do you see a difference across our schools?
You mean that we work with different populations in different school sites?
Yes, and also whether there's perhaps an overrepresentation in one particular school, or is it pretty equal across all of them?
Okay, great questions. First off, I'll just say that the demographics do differ per school based on usually the demographics of that school. So they're more representative. For example, La Colina, we serve a higher Anglo population. And we can actually give you individual reports per school. I'd be happy to send those to you so that you can see the demographics per school and the issues that we're serving. Like I said, this is just a brief overview since we only had 10 minutes. So I'll send those to you. And your other question, I think you asked about females. Oh, yeah. Good question. We do tend to serve more females than males in all of our programs, actually our intervention programs. As you see with RY, it's 56% female. I think the reason for that is, and with individual counseling as well, although the truth is it's 61%, as I said there, and I'm sorry about that error. Females tend to seek out and want to do more talking process at times, I think, and so they're more attracted to that. So they seek out the support oftentimes, more. And our staff, we do have a higher percentage female YSS that might be part of it. But generally, I think counseling in general, there tends to be. That's not just within our programs, that's throughout, that more females seek out that type of help.
Ms. Idelson.
You talk about the high schools, but then you just mentioned La Colina. So is this in the junior highs fully, or?
Yeah, we're actually in all the secondary schools, so that's junior high and high school. So we have one full-time staff at each of those schools, with the exception of Santa Barbara High and San Marcos High School, we have 2 full-time staff. So yes, we are in the junior high schools and in the high schools. And actually this year we also are in La Cuesta, so that's something we added.
And walk me through a little bit briefly, just say a student, so you said some self-identify or come to you. What's generally the outreach? How are you going about attracting students, or are they mostly referred, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's really varied. One thing I'll say is that our staff are I don't want to say they're at capacity, but they have lots of students coming to them. They're really well-known in the schools because we've been in the schools for more than 20 years. So teachers, counselors, admin are very aware of YSS. So that when they know, a student comes up, maybe they're having an anxiety attack or feeling depressed, or a teacher knows that this student's behavior is different, something's going on, they know they can refer to the YSS. So we have those referrals that are happening ongoing. And in addition, students learn about the YSS oftentimes from their friends. The kids bring in their friends sometimes, like, I have someone you can talk to. So they have an open door kind of policy in that way of meeting the students' needs. So that's how they come into the program. And we do, as Melissa mentioned, we're part of staff development, staff training. So we're continuously training about what YSS do, PTSA, so parents call in. So.
Thank you. And I just have one quick question, and then I'll go back to you, Ms. Limon. On one of your last slides, and you're talking about super, and then the new sort of second offense referral. And what we see as a board is that our expulsions due to drug and alcohol use on campus or possession on campus have just dropped really dramatically over the years and continue to drop. And I guess I'm wondering if your first offense, if your super level, if that's holding steady does it typically about 100 families per year that are served, or have you seen any trends in your first, I think your first offense in particular?
I actually, right now, the school district, you all coordinate the program, so I don't have all of the details of that. But one thing I know that earlier in the year, not as many families were showing up. They were being referred, but not showing up. And we've worked with Mitch Tarina and we've done presentations with the assistant principals about how to do that follow-through to make sure parents know that it's required to go to super. Okay. So when that dropped down, it wasn't that we weren't providing the services. There wasn't as much follow-through ensuring that the parents attend. So that's been changed, and we've seen that go back up.
Okay. Ms. Limon?
So my question is, there are a couple schools that you're working with that have tried, or one has fully rolled out the restorative approaches model for discipline, and the other one is, I think, in the midst. Are there any different trends that you see at those schools that you don't see at the other? If so, what are some of those trends?
The main trend, well, first I just think back to Santa Barbara Junior High because they piloted the program, and YSS was such an integral part of that because she was pulled in repeatedly, that this is going on. And the main trends that I think we notice is the students' language, where the students are learning, this is a different way that we can deal with a situation. And sometimes they'll talk to the YSS about that, or the YSS will say to them, well, this might be something you can do, you can talk with your teacher about, So I think teachers are maybe in those schools, not all the schools and not all the teachers, but are more willing to maybe work out with the students when there's a mediation. Sometimes the YSS help facilitate that. But in general, I'm trying to think what other trends I'm seeing. School climate. It's hard to say, as a whole. Potentially we could come back. I could talk to our YSS more about it.
No, it's okay. I'm just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And obviously, it's great the work that your entire team does. We really appreciate that, and we'll keep talking.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I do just want to say too, as far as the restorative process, that I'm so grateful that has been part of the school culture, because I think that's so much of what our YSS program has done for years, and to see that really embraced by you, by the teachers, so we're all really working together as a greater team. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up is item G2. This is a discussion of new classified job descriptions in the clerical secretarial job family. Dr. Cash.
I'm going to ask Mr. Tangway to present this item.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cash and members of the board. So around August and September of 2013, Dr. Cash asked me to begin looking at some of the key administrative positions at our elementary, junior high, and high schools to see if they were properly allocated on our salary ranges, given the complexity of the work that the incumbents in those positions do. So based on some analysis that we did, in October of 2013, we changed the classification of the principal secretary at the high school sites from a range 34 to a range 40, and move them into what is called an Administrative Secretary 3 position. And let me just note that prior to October of 2013, the key administrative person at the elementary, the junior high, and the high school were all at the same range, and had been for a very long time, which was kind of odd since those positions do have some differences. So we then moved to the junior highs, and in February of this year, the board approved the job description of junior high school office manager, and we reclassified the 4 incumbents into that position. So, which brings us to our elementary and La Cuesta key administrative staff. So we have come up with a proposal, which CSEA ratified on April 16th, to reclassify the elementary office coordinators to the position of elementary school office manager with 2 different ranges. A range 40 for school sites that have a student population of 399 students or greater, and at elementary school office manager 1, a range 39 for those schools that have a population of 399 or less. And we also, recognizing that the continuation school has changed quite a bit of late, now that they have Alta Vista and Quetzal with its distributed campuses, the need there for administrative support has changed, the complexity of the duties of the incumbent have changed, and so we are proposing, and CSEA has approved, the creation of a continuation high school office manager position at range 38.
Thank you, Mr. Tengway. And we will note up there the 2 different office manager categories, one for 399 or fewer, one for 400 or more, and then the continuation category. I will also note that we have a number of office managers in the room for some reason.
Imagine that.
Yeah, surprise.
And principals.
And principals, here to support, because I know that you would all say that this is your right-hand person. Board members, we do have public comment.
Mr. Paul Rooney.
I just want to speak in support of the ladies here, that we did ratify it on the 16th. And also, Brian, I stand corrected on the number of employees being laid off. Thank you, I appreciate it. Anyways, that's what I had to say. They've got our support. Thank you.
And I actually have a question for Mr. Tengway now that you've gone and sat down.
Happy to come back.
I'm trying to remember, and maybe you know this off the top of your head, for the junior high and high school positions, I don't remember the enrollment piece. Are those in place for those schools, or is it just for the elementary?
They are not. It's only for the elementary, because we have 2 schools of choice which have a drastically different enrollment. I also want to make one historical note, which I think is important in this discussion, that the issue of looking at the classification of the elementary office coordinator first came up in 2004 when I was the CSEA president, and I can't tell you how nice it is to be that close to the finish line for finally getting this accomplished. So it has been around a long time. It's not something that happened overnight. And it's a recognition, it's an equity issue, and it's a recognition of the changed job that these people do for our students and staff every day.
Well, I guess this is a question for you, or maybe Dr. Cash. Our elementary sites, sometimes their populations do vary dramatically, and one could be 480 one year and then 390 the next. So what happens in that kind of situation? Do they automatically go to salary range 39?
They'll slide back and forth. They could slide back and forth.
Okay, that was my only question on that. All right, board members, any other comments on this? This is on conference. Would you be willing to just have this go forward on consent at the next agenda item? No changes needed? All right, so we will bring this forward on consent agenda.
Thank you very much.
Which is pretty pro forma. So that will be passed or not passed. It will be voted on at our first meeting in May. All right? Thank you.
A lot of musical chairs.
Thank you. Next is item G3. This is discussion of classified management job description, Chief Education Technology Officer. Dr. Cash.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This was briefly introduced to you previously. The technology position has really moved from a focus entirely on hardware and software to more of a focus on education. And this title, as well as the description of the job, which shifts from management and leverage of information to a focus on K-12 educational programs. These are just examples. A shift from management of data systems to recommending technology practices to improve educational programs. It's a recognition that technology does not stand apart from our instructional and educational programs, but is integrated and integral to it. And so that's why we're proposing this new management job description.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on this job description? Hearing none, would the board be amenable to having this come forward on the consent agenda next time? All right, we will look at that on the consent agenda at our first meeting in May. Thank you. And next is G4, the one-to-one iPad distribution update. Dr. Cash.
Going to ask Mr. Rickman to give the board and members of the public a quick update on what's happened over the past several weeks.
So, we have begun our distribution of iPads. In fact, we will be finishing it tonight. It's the amount of work that has been done by a great group of people is amazing. I want to publicly acknowledge Wendy Mirbod, who has become my right hand during this whole process, along with a number of LaQuesta students who were so excited during the distribution of iPads that they have volunteered at a number of our schools, and we couldn't do it, actually, frankly, without them. It's pretty amazing. I just want to go over the numbers with you really quick. IFL stands for Invest for Learn, or Invest for Learning. That's the pay-to-own program. So at LaQuesta, we distributed 110 iPads. 64 of those who are participating in the Invest for Learn. Adams, 298, with 194 participating in Invest to Learn. Washington, 381, with 76 participating in Invest for Learn. And 275 at Franklin, with 228 participating in Invest for Learn. So if I could have the next page, please. So our successes, just getting out that many iPads is a success. It's been really incredible. We've had fabulous parent participation. Our network has been rock solid, and not only rock solid, but fast, which is thank goodness. And our teachers, because of the legwork we did ahead of time, many of our teachers began integrating the iPads into instructions as soon as they arrived in their classes. Our struggles, the new Apple ID for kids process has been a struggle that we've been working with Apple. We're one of the largest school districts to do it with them, so we've been working through that. Pushing apps to the devices via our MDM has been a struggle. I'm constantly on the phone with AirWatch support, and so we're getting those worked out. And we have some makeup distribution sessions that we have to students we missed, parents we missed, that we're having a hard time reconnecting with those families. But we are working as hard as we can to get all of our iPads distributed. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Limon.
So I appreciate hearing both the successes and the struggles. I think that in this conversation of rolling out, it's so important to hear what works and what doesn't work. And I had the opportunity to sit in at the Adams School distribution, and Ms. Parker was there as well. And I really got to see and hear just parent comments and student comments, and I was very impressed by how hard everybody was working in that room, running around from group to group. So I think that the rollout, at least what I saw, the day that I saw the actual distribution and I sat there and I watched, was successful as it could be for the first time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Idelson.
I'm wondering, on that first slide, was that the breakdown that you expected?
Yes, that we talked about this prior. I suggested that this is what it would probably look like, and yeah, it turned out to be that way. I was hoping for more overall participating in Invest for Learn, but I think 53% is pretty good. And there are a number of parents who left asking if they could change their mind if they chose not to participate in Invest for Learn right then. If they changed their mind, could they do it later? So we'll see what happens down the road. And again, we haven't, the first payment is due on May 1st. So I think there's a difference between people who say we're going to participate and people who actually, when it comes time to make that payment, make it. So, I think the jury is still out. We'll see what we truly get.
Mr. Herron.
This presentation wasn't on the website.
I will put it there.
Can you
Yeah,
get it on the agenda.
Yeah, at the last minute I decided it would be good to have some slides, so I will do that. I'll get it posted.
Oh, and I just wanted to say a big thank you for the fact that the system worked and worked dramatically well. We had I had one email from a principal saying how fantastic it was, and when 5 years ago the person in charge of technology was only it because he volunteered, because nobody else would step forward, to see the change today is dramatic, and I want to thank you that making that work.
Thank you very much.
Few questions.
Yes.
First of all, for the students that are participating in the Invest for Learn program,
yes,
I assume that over the summer they will keep their iPads.
That's correct.
What will happen for the other students?
The plan is right now we're going to collect them, put them in a manila envelope with their name on it, and when they return to school in the fall, they'll get their iPad back.
Yes, I'm witnessing such engagement and dependence that I think you may find that some of these numbers start to change at the beginning of June as families come to understand that something that their kid is really involved with, that they won't want to give that up for the summer, and that they may decide that it's something that they should go ahead and invest in. So I wouldn't be surprised if some of these numbers, in terms of parents deciding to either lease or to go ahead and buy them, start to change. Technical difficulties, it doesn't sound like there's been anything overwhelming. Another concern that we had, of course, was theft. I know that there have been at least a couple stolen already. I think La Cuesta, I don't know about other. And did you said that they would turn into bricks if they were stolen. Did that work?
On one iPad it did. On one iPad it did not, because the student hadn't enabled that feature.
Okay.
And this is stuff we knew was going to happen. It happened a little sooner than I actually thought it would. But yes, on the second one it did, and we were able to give the police the serial number. I was thinking the other day, one of the big mistakes I think I've made is that I should have called the police department and let them know that we were doing this, and told them exactly what the iPads are engraved, and to expect calls about stolen iPads, just to give them a heads up, and I plan on doing that.
Okay, great. Well, Dr. Paz.
Yeah, not so much a question of the distribution, because it sounds like it was covered and we had school board members and it's great. But I'm really curious, especially with your second slide, when you mentioned that a lot of teachers already started implementing. I would love to start seeing the stories that the elementary school teachers are doing, and especially with La Cuesta and how they're implementing their iPad use, and love to have some report back in terms of how that's going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to show off our teachers.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other comments on this? Great. Well, we look forward to seeing how this progresses.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, Mr. Herron.
One question on Franklin. Did they instigate a different program for distribution? Did they have parent training as part of their requirements, or did they follow through the same way the other schools did?
They did a parent meeting prior to distribution, and to be honest, all of the schools worked out the same, whether they had their parent meeting earlier or they didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to G5, and this is the Smarter Balanced Field Test update. Dr. Cash.
I thought it would be a good idea to share with you what's been happening. And we started. We got Mr. Handel and Dr. Drotti are going to. Mr. Handel doesn't have much to report because I think you just started today.
Well, actually, yes. We have, first off, thank you, Dr. Cash. Good evening. We don't have a lot to report. It's great to be able to follow up on the iPad distribution, because the iPad distribution was kind of a good opportunity for us to see how our system was going to respond, and see that all these iPads were getting out there, so that we would have to minimize the number of other units that we were going to have to get, so that our students could take this assessment. So far, the reports that we've gotten back from at least from the elementary have been quite minimal, and the fact that we don't have any folks sending you dozens of emails tonight is kind of speaks to where we're at in terms of the testing. One comment that we got back today by email from one of our principals at the elementary site had more to do with the Smarter Balance system, and nothing to do with our network. Our network, as we just reported out, is working fine. It's fast, it's strong, it's healthy. I went to a few different sites. Went to Washington during their distribution. I've been to Adams. I've also was at Franklin a few times. The system is up and working well. Much to the credit of Mr. Rickman and all of his staff. But as far as the testing, we're learning little glitches within the system itself, guiding, navigating through the system, student IDs, nothing major. For us, right now at this phase, I would say we think it's successful. We still have a few more schools to get through. But overall, again, because we're not hearing any howling from our sites, with so many folks taking it, we think we're off to a successful trial run. And more to the trial run, we had a lot of angst internally, at the cabinet level, of course, and also at the site level about taking this assessment. And we've had to repeatedly remind our folks that this is more a testing of their system. We are going to make mistakes. We are not going to have enough keyboards or headphones, or some aren't going to work, or some adapters aren't going to, we're going to have glitches. But this is an opportunity for us as an organization to figure out what we need to do to prepare for next year when we're actually taking the assessment for real. So again, we believe we're off to a successful start, and we look forward to reporting out once this testing window closes.
At the secondary level, I got a chance to walk around and just talk to the testing coordinators, because I wanted to see where they were. Yes, they're the main ones that I have to coordinate the schools, but their confidence and preparation really, I think, calmed the waters down for people. Just to give you context, prior to the actual test, they administered pre-tests just to make sure they're able to kind of see how to navigate through the computer systems, and so they were able to kind of feel out 2 weeks prior to the actual test day, get rid of some questions and address some questions and concerns. So I thought the testing coordinators did a good job. Just to let you know that we're going to administer surveys to all students that took the test. We're also going to administer a survey to the teachers, so that way we can learn about the actual content of the test, and also what their experience was like. So at a later time, we'll give you more of a formal analysis of how the whole experience went. Anecdotally, what they did report is that students who took the test on the actual computers had a much easier time than the ones that took it on the iPads. So that's something I think we're going to have to sit back and address later on.
We visited some sites, and one of the main issues, and I confirm this with other districts that are doing this, is that Smarter Balance hired a developer to make a secure browser, what they call a secure browser, and they didn't hire the greatest developer group in the world, and so the issues is not with the iPads or our system. The issue is with the app. So there's issues with the app, and there's also issues with their browser on PCs as well. They're just not as bad. So this is why we're doing this, to provide the feedback. Hopefully they can get their bugs worked out. What was amazing when we visited sites is we were so well prepared, thanks to the hard work of all of these test coordinators in the sites, that the issues really haven't surrounded anything having to do with us. It has to do with the SBAC testing software.
There he went, SBAC. The new acronym. Ms. Limon.
But one thing the students did report, I want to add this, is they saw a definite difference between their experience of testing from the previous years to now. So it'll be pretty interesting what they have to report out.
And I think someone sent me an Ed Week article about a San Jose student. Right?
Fascinating, yeah.
Yeah, and the student actually had positive things to say. Said, "Oh my gosh, like I actually get to say what I know, and I don't have to guess." So I thought that was a really interesting. It was an interesting article. I don't know if the rest of the board got it, but it might be worthwhile for
I'll forward it to everyone.
the board to get. So I actually want to just kind of go back and get some very basic information of. So this is the schedule. So. Did everyone take it? Certain grades take it? What percentage took it with iPads, and which ones did it with text?
We'll get you all that stuff when we're done.
Okay, so
because you'll know we're just on the 22nd here. Since I've been asked repeatedly by the media about this, I didn't want you guys to go without getting just a kind of a dipstick look at it, but you'll get a full report about how many took it with the iPads, how many took it with computers, how many had laptops.
But did the students at the sites, did certain grades take it?
Yes.
Certain grades. Can you say which elementary?
3 through 8.
3 through 8.
And then grade 11. And then selected schools, I think DP and San Marcos, certain groups of 9th graders and 10th graders.
Correct. It was just 9th grade at DP.
Yes.
9th grade at DP, and then 10th and 9th at San Marcos.
The 10th graders did not take Smarter Balance. They took the old CST science, along with 5th graders.
So 10th and 5th took old ones?
Yes.
Okay. And then the testing coordinators, how did the testing coordinators work? Sorry, I need some background information.
Yeah, so we just basically, the testing coordinator is actually coordinated, all the testing coordinators are coordinated by my assistant, Kerry Martin. So she took the students through, the testing coordinators at the sites through some webinar series, and just kind of talk to them about the whole process of testing.
And so the testing coordinators were classified, certificated?
Some were administrators, some were certificated.
Selected by the site?
Yes.
We've had testing coordinators forever. So it was typically the same person.
Okay, gotcha. All right, thanks.
Ms. Idelson.
What Dr. Cash just said gave me a little clarity, but I think what's been really a concern for me is the lack of communication to the parents. Maybe the students have been hearing it, but I've felt there's been dramatic confusion. Does this test count? What does it mean? Back and forth. Do we have to take it? I mean, kids are always going to question that. And this is more on a secondary level that I'm hearing it. So I have people asking me, what is this about? And generally parents.
I've sent letters home to every parent, so.
Okay. And I think the teleparent came on
Yes.
earlier or last week, basically saying, you know, have your child get a good night's sleep and that. But the fact that it's a different test, but the CST takers, I'm being asked, does that one count because it's the prior test or
None.
not? Okay, so they're all field tests.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, none of them are going to count towards the creation of an academic performance index.
Okay, and what about an APY?
AYP
or
is...
AYP, excuse me.
AYP, we have a 2-year waiver from the state or the federal Department of Education.
Okay.
And the high school exit exam has always been the AYP indicator for secondary schools.
Okay.
It hasn't been anything else. Hasn't been the CSTs or the EAP. It's always been the high school exit exam.
So
10th
that-
graders.
so that does-
10th graders have determined the AYP for high schools in California for the last 10 years.
Okay.
We actually have the article, the letter that we sent home. We can definitely redistribute that, but I think when we sent the letter, it was in January. I don't think people were really thinking about
I don't think so.
the test then, so now they're thinking about
Because
it
you
now.
mentioned that, and I remember receiving something, but it definitely wasn't on my radar that the date and all.
Yes.
So, all right.
I will just add in that I've got my 2 younger ones have been either doing the pre-testing or the actual testing at this point, and they are indeed reporting dramatically different than previous years. And I think, not that it's harder, it's very time-consuming because they're explaining their thinking process. And, you know, I think that could be great in the long run. We'll see. All right, thank you very much. Oh, you do, Mr. Hearn?
You just mentioned time-consuming, and I guess I look at these, and like for the secondary schools, testing is going on for 10 days. The typical student, how much time does a typical student spend on these tests?
For this test, it averages about 2 to 3 hours.
And so it takes 2 weeks to go through all the 11th graders?
Yes, remember, it's all done on computer, so we're hampered by our capacity to be able to test all students.
We don't have at every elementary school 1 computer for every student, and we don't have at every secondary school 1 computer for every 7th and 8th grader or every 11th grader. So they can't take it at the same time.
So the 11th grader is missing at least 1 or 2 classes that they would normally have on that day. I mean,
It's the same amount of time as they did in the STAR testing. It's
Right.
no more time.
It's not the same students, and we're just rotating students through labs.
but like a typical class of 11th graders, they might be taking a 10th grade class or a higher level class.
It's the same issues we've had. There's really no difference. I mean, we've always had mixed classes in high schools where we've had to separate kids out during testing.
And what do they do? I mean, how do they make up the work, or how do they make up?
Well, the teachers accommodate that because they know it's happening.
Okay.
All right, we will definitely be hearing more about this. And we will move on to item G6, the presentation of Facilities Master Plan Process Update. And thank you for your
Finally,
patience on this.
John Mills sitting patiently out there, the principal architect with LPA. We have Dave Hitjungs going to introduce them.
Thank you, Dr. Cash, members of the board. First of all, on the agenda item, I have 2 incorrect dates. On the background in the 3rd paragraph, I'm a year early on each of those dates. We did not start the process a year before the board approved the agreement with LPA.
You figured that out.
So that should be December 2013 and completed in January 2015. I'm getting better. Last time I messed up a date, I was 1,000 years off. But we do have tonight John Mills from LPA. We need to you'll see Kelly and V here also. Teleco Construction Management is overseeing the process of the Facilities Master Plan, doing all of the legwork to set up all the meetings. There's been numerous meetings with committees and focus groups, and John Mills, Principal in Charge, is here tonight to give us an update on how the process is going. So, John?
Thank you, David. President Parker, members of the board, Dr. Cash, it's a pleasure to be here this evening to update you on our first few months of effort since our approval to move forward last year. And keep in mind that the first phase of the master plan effort is really an opportunity for us and our teams to go out and gather information about the existing conditions of the sites, meet with various constituencies, parents, teachers, educators, students, community members to gain an understanding of all the influences and issues that affect schools and the facilities. So that's really what our first few months have been about. You want to go to the first slide here. So here's kind of our schedule. The first thing we did after our approval to start in December was form our two basic committees. One is the FLT, or the Facilities Leadership Team, and that's basically a cabinet level of administrative staff of the district that gives guidance to us on a monthly basis. We keep them apprised of what we're doing, and we get feedback from them and guidance about how we should implement our processes each month as we go out. The FMPC is the Facilities Master Plan Committee. This is a group comprised of your overall education community. We have about 31 members on this committee. Again, parents, teachers, administrators, community college representatives, students, a very broad spectrum of the community, which is what you want to put together kind of a comprehensive look of our master plan for the district moving forward. And we've had with those two committees 3 meetings each as we've gone through each month of the process. You'll notice in the greenish-yellow bar there, the first kind of major effort was to really go out to each one of your sites and evaluate the conditions out there. So our staff went out, met with the principals of each of those campuses, gathered kind of information of needs and issues that those principals are seeing on their site, as well as going out and looking at it from our professional overview from our engineering and architectural standpoint of what we see in education, not only in the state of California, but throughout the United States, and kind of looking at where we see potential issues and opportunities down the road, and documenting all that in a comprehensive way right now. So we have a complete needs assessment complete now for each of the campuses. We also did focus interviews with several of the groups that overlay each of the campuses: special ed, food service, and child development. We met with them individually to get an understanding of some of the needs and issues that they're facing and how that overlays on each one of the campuses from the elementary to junior high to high school. We're just now in the early stages of, as we've talked about technology a lot this evening, having our technology consultant PlanNet has been engaged, going out looking at representative sites for the district, as well as having a couple of meetings already with your technology staff to talk about the next steps we want to take in the visioning for keeping you at the forefront of technology and how that's integrated with the classrooms and obviously benefiting the students. Next slide, please. So you've probably seen this diagram before, maybe during our interview, those that were involved in that. These are kind of the 4 legs of the master planning stool, if you will: the demographics, the needs assessment, which we have completed already, the educational visioning, and the financial analysis. We're right now in the lower right corner here in the educational kind of visioning stage right now. Now that we've completed the needs assessments, we're going to start evaluating and establishing the standards for the district. And then we're going to take those standards in the next phase of work in the coming months and overlay that on each site so we begin to develop the vision and the master plan for each individual site moving forward, and you'll get apprised of that as we go through that process. The demographic analysis was already complete before we started, so we have a foundational understanding of where students are and where the growth is occurring in the district now and moving forward. And then financial analysis will overlay as we get in later into the summer and particularly into the fall as we identify the visions and start putting cost to that. We'll be coming back to you and engaging our committees in an evaluation of prioritizing the needs, what are the most important things to do, and what are the costs for that, and we'll start rolling that out as a very important part of the last phase before we finalize the master plan at the end of the year here. Next slide, please. This is an example of one of our needs assessments. So we go out and develop basically a site plan of the entire site. Again, we've met with the principal of each of those sites and documented some of their concerns and issues of opportunity for us. We've also noted the prior bond measure work that has been completed, but also identified some of the bond measure work that is yet to be completed on those sites, so we know what's coming down the road in terms of improvements over the next year here or so before future improvements improvements may be made. We've also photographed all the existing conditions at each of those sites, so we have this in a binder as well. And if you want to see more detail on that, we can certainly provide that for your review to get a better understanding of what we see at a very detailed and micro level on each of the campus sites. Next slide, please. So this is kind of the planning themes. It's very much relate to your strategic plan and your aims, so you're going to be familiar with a lot of this. I just kind of wanted to run around the circle here just briefly, starting at the top with the life, career, college-ready students is one of your aims in your strategic plan. We're hearing a lot about the goals of project-based learning, career pathways, potentially career technical education, and how that might overlay on all your campuses. So that's something we're studying and hearing a lot about from your principals and educators in the community. The next circle over for adaptive and agile learning environments, we're hearing a lot from students and teachers about wouldn't we like to have more flexible classrooms with furnishings that accommodate different kinds of learnings at different kinds of settings? And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Student, family, and community engagement. How do our campuses become community centers? It's a big theme of your strategic plans. We want to look and keep that in our forefront as we plan your campuses and make sure that we're making them inviting places for the entire community to come and participate in the education of children. Professional capacity and support. The teachers need a time and place to collaborate together and plan to engage the students in the best ways. We want to make sure we're overlaying that on the campuses and giving a place for our teachers to spend some time together in a meaningful way to make the educational delivery to our students more powerful and compelling. Sustainable school design is a big part, again, of your strategic plan. We're very passionate about that as well. It's really about being good stewards of our limited resources, so we're going to be looking at ways to save energy through our master plan, specify materials that have better life cycle costs and return and wearability and durability on your sites. We talk about the indoor-outdoor relationships. We teach a lot indoors, but we can easily connect to the outdoors and make that a powerful component of the educational delivery for the district. And most importantly is how do we engage the students in understanding of sustainability so that our buildings and our facilities become a teaching tool in themselves to educate our students and make them the passionate curators of the future for our district and our communities. Healthy students will do the basics in terms of upgrading kitchens and restrooms facilities. We'll be looking at all the physical education facilities to make sure they're at the cutting edge of where they need to be, as well as providing health clinics and health centers on campuses, which is an important part of serving the students' needs. Safe schools will involve both a look at active and passive systems. This will be very site-specific. We have sites, of course, that have traffic issues and fencing issues, and so that'll be kind of drilling down very much into the detail of the unique site and addressing that very specifically to the needs that may be on a particular site. And then lastly, transparent process, the engagement of the broader community. This process and the thoughtfulness of everyone's engagement makes it a meaningful process for us. And we hope at the end of the day, when we roll out the master plan, that everyone sees that they've had input and it's really their plan that they've been a part of creating the vision for the district look ahead and the future facility improvements that may occur. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of detail as we've met, had some focus group meetings at the elementary school level. Again, we get back to this idea of getting students more hands-on kind of project-based learning. So as we look at a typical classroom, how do we create an area that facilitates different kinds of group interaction and teaching, but yet allows the students in the bottom diagram here to have some time to explore things on their own. And so often when we see classrooms, we see the front of the classroom, and then we have storage cabinets all around. How do we consolidate the storage and open up all the walls for teaching and create areas for our kids to be one-on-one with the teacher or one-on-one with each other, but then come together as a group for group instruction? So we're going to be really looking at a dynamic teaching environments that will facilitate kind of all those different group interactions we need to have. Next slide, please. The same at the secondary level. We've had focus group meetings at your junior high schools, and very much the same issue here, a little more challenging in that we've got a lot of existing schools, and we're certainly not going to propose tearing down walls to open everything up, but we can certainly look at a diagram of a use of a classroom where we have the tradition of everyone kind of sitting in a row, like Kelly and V there, attending to the front of the classroom. Or we can have an environment that has really flexible furnishings, such as for a lecture, but it can be easily moved around to the third diagram down, where we're having a discussion, where we really want the students looking at each other and feeling like they're interacting and participating, as well as being able to break into project-based problem-solving groups and to be able to do that quickly. But at the same time, to also think about, as we've heard from some of the students and the parents and the excitement about having clusters of pathways. So if you have kind of, if you will, maybe not an academy yet, but an idea about engineering as a pathway, that we begin to kind of cluster those, the curriculum and the teaching in a cluster of maybe 6 classrooms with a common breakout area. So not all the instruction would necessarily be in the classroom, but students have an opportunity to break out and get in groups and work on project-based issues that may be clustered around engineering or a STEM program or the arts, if you will. Next slide, please. And then we've had a great time. Your students have been outstanding. We had an ASB meeting recently. We had 25 students show up. They're just a joy to connect with and very interactive. And we hear this from a lot of students, this idea of having a campus hub and a student union is what everyone wants to have. So we're seeing that. We've seen it a lot, certainly at the higher level educations, community college and university level of projects that we do, but it's certainly as application and value at the K-12 level. So they're very excited about having some kind of space that becomes a place where they can lunch and gather, study, do all those kinds of things. So we'll be looking for those opportunities on your campuses to engage that. I just talked about kind of pathways, and there's a lot of commentary about certain unique disciplines, the engineering focus, and students being proud of that engagement. So how do we recognize that in a campus environment and make unique settings that provide some focus for students to excel in certain areas of curriculum. And then lastly, we hear this all the time as well, boy, the old furniture really needs to go. I want something comfortable in and something that excites me about coming to school every day. So we'll certainly be looking at opportunities to have flexible furnishing that's cost effective, but provides some opportunity for quick adjustment that the teachers can manage and provide different kinds of environments for teaching whatever may be happening that day in class. And so next steps here, we're going to continue and wrap up our focus meetings at the high school level here in the next month, and then we'll start kind of the exciting process of finalizing the standards for the district and then doing the standards overlay on each of your campuses. So we're going to start developing some rough sketches of how those standards overlay on each of the campuses that we'll be sharing with our committees and the FLT and the FMPC, and get prepared for the fall, which will be a very, very engaged process with some town hall meetings where we start sharing our visions and getting the input and making the kind of formalized master plans for the district. And we'll share a little bit more about that when we come back in July. We'll have some example sketches and diagrams, give you a sense of what that's about, and then kind of roll out for you in a little more detail about how this fall will work as we roll out the vision and start putting cost to that to wrap everything up for hopefully end of the year kind of master plan wrap up. Next slide, please. And I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have at this point.
Madam President, may I say something?
Yes, you may.
You know, we didn't know LPA, so I got to say, they just have not disappointed us at all in the work they've done. Their level of engagement in the community has been spectacular. And I just want to publicly acknowledge the fact that they have so far exceeded my expectations. Is their level of engagement, their flexibility, their interest in learning about our uniqueness in Santa Barbara has just been fantastic. So just want to make sure you hear that.
Thank you. Board?
I'll just say it's exciting.
It is an exciting time.
I'm waiting to see the price tag. Yeah.
Yes. It's all a process.
Yes. You mentioned the possibility of us seeing the details at the more micro level of that sort of site. I can guarantee that all the board members would love to see that kind of nitty-gritty. So,
Okay.
absolutely. And my question for you is, as you're talking, I mean, there's some very different programs on our sites, but are you seeing more common themes, or are you seeing some real differences between our sites?
I think more common themes in terms of vision moving forward. There's certainly uniqueness in terms of some existing condition issues that we'll address in kind of the detail level. But I think in terms of vision about what the future could be, there's some real commonality there, which is really exciting.
Great.
I think your strategic plan was a big part of that. I think you've kind of been through that process with the district and kind of set a really great kind of vision about where you want to go. So it's been really great for us to kind of follow along and build upon that. So
thank you.
Excited about that.
Ms. Limon.
Well, very exciting. I also would like to see the price tag on some of this, but I'm just curious if there's any bridging, because I know that there's some literature out there about classroom layout and effectiveness when it comes to student engagement and student learning. And I'm just curious if there's any bridging of that literature. I know it's academic, literature, but with the actual facilities, like how is one going to choose whether they want the lecture, the discussion, or the project base? I mean, is there some, well, when we get there, but
right.
I mean, is there some of that?
I think we've already brought some of that to the table in some of our committee and focus group meetings, and we'll bring more of that as we talk about the vision, because certainly looking at other case studies of what's been done is hugely beneficial, and what fits one district doesn't fit all, so we'll come and present a variety of options from not only here in the state, but from around the United States, and there's some great examples in Australia and England right now that are equally worth looking at as we go through this kind of visioning process that may evolve into something a little bit unique that's uniquely Santa Barbara. So we'll look for those opportunities and get into that kind of level of presentation.
Great.
And during the interview process, and Mr. Heron and I were both present for that, you really demonstrated that you have expertise in that specific area.
Right.
And I'm glad to hear from Dr. Cash that everything that we saw in the interview process is bearing out. And so it'll be great to have that kind of feedback, essentially, and input. Any other comments on this, Dr. Paz?
Yeah, I had similar thought when you were looking or talking about the different configurations of the rooms for different learning styles of students. Some students are introverts and some students are extroverts, and how do you deal with that, configuring rooms?
Right.
So I'd be interested to know a little more in terms of how that, as you roll out the process.
We will do that.
Ms. Edelson.
I wasn't a part of the interviewing process, but I'm looking at this thinking this is more about interior space, right? That you're basically looking at how to optimize learning styles in conjunction with remodeling interiors.
That's a big part of it, but we also, I think I mentioned earlier about the idea of indoor-outdoor relationship, and the outdoor environments can equally be learning kind of environments. So we definitely want to look at exterior spaces and the connection between indoors and outdoors. Lots of great examples of projects that we've done and others that have done where classrooms spill outside, particularly in the arts and even in the engineering, to have classrooms with roll-up doors that allow you to go right out and do your project-based learning that you don't want to do inside but outside, to create those kinds of opportunities. So there's absolutely an importance in terms of that indoor-outdoor relationship that we want to take advantage of, particularly in a great setting like Santa Barbara, where you're blessed with this great weather and climate, so I want to take advantage of that.
I think the elephant in the room for me is we're a district with a lot of portables.
Yeah.
Given that, do you wipe away the portables and start anew, or are you looking at how do we turn portables into what I see here?
A big part of the program is trying to eliminate the portables.
The portables out.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, 60 of them are over 35 years or 40 years. Yeah.
They've lived their life?
Yes.
They were euphemistically called temporary classrooms, but they've become permanent.
Okay.
And I'll just ask real quick, are you talking about security? And how to keep students safe on campuses as part of your discussions with these groups.
Yes, that'll be part of it. It'll involve some of the technology discussions we have about some active security kinds of systems as well as passive security systems that I spoke about earlier. So we are looking at that. Traffic flow is an issue on many of the campuses, so how do we keep students safe as they're crossing over traffic patterns and all those kinds of issues that are uniquely different on each site. So we're going to be looking at that as well and making sure that gets incorporated into each of the campus master plans.
Mr. Hearn.
Are you going to be able to use the teleQ report that we have on facilities? Is that part of your process?
Yeah, we've already been given that information. That was a great starting point for us to allow us to get out, and they've already identified a lot of the issues, which was very helpful for us. We went out and kind of revalidated some of that, and we need to put our eyes on it ourselves. So that was a great starting point for us. So yeah, we've used all that information, and we'll continue to use it as we move forward.
Thank you.
All right, well, it looks like we're going to be seeing you again in July.
You will.
We look forward to it. You have a lot of work to do before then.
Yes.
We look forward to seeing that. Yeah. And next up for us then.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item H, we have no consent items designated for discussion to come back to. Coming events, we already talked about some of the coming events. Anything that people need to add to that list? Otherwise, future agenda items. Dr. Paz.
I would like to see if we can, not immediately, but I think I would love to hear an update on our health and wellness policy.
Ms. Simone.
On that note, I know it's been a little while since we've had our food services, and there's an article in the Independent. I would love to have an update at some point in the future. It could be combined, but yeah.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea to combine them. Any others at this point? Mr. Hearn?
Yeah, the chart up there that was used at Washington as a example brought to my mind, I'd like an update on the exchange agreement for the parking at Washington at one of our board sessions, at one of our closed sessions.
Got it.
All right, we will add those. And if there's no opposition at this point, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting, and we'll see you at our next regular meeting on May 13th. Thank you.